Hey everyone, how are you all doing? Hopefully, again, my sound is all working well there. I'll make sure my microphone is pointed in the right direction so you can hear me. And I am going to turn my chat on over here so that I can actually hear what everyone is saying. Christy is saying she's going out, but you're going to catch up later and you hope you have no burning questions. Well, fingers crossed. I'll do my best here to actually to answer some of the questions that will be coming in. And as people are trying to create their modifications, it's adding a small little bit of confusion, I think, for people who are new in here. So I'm going to try and simplify it down a little bit. And remember, you don't have to make it too complicated for yourself. So that's very, very important to remember as you're going through knitting the Torc cardigan, that sometimes if you're trying to finesse or you've had problems getting a garment to fit yourself well, you might be making a few more tweaks. If you are newer to this, it is very, very important that you actually just go ahead and make as little changes as possible so you can learn the actual technique of knitting as you're going through. So the more variations you start introducing, the more complexity you start adding. So new people, keep it slow, keep it easy as you're going through. Thank you all for joining me in here as well. I hope there was a lot of excitement with people popping in to actually with the first clue came up. So it's actually really, really nice to see how excited all of you are to get started with the knit along. Pop in, let us know where you're coming from. I love to know where people are coming from. And if you do have a question or something that's confusing as you're going along, just pop it up into the comments. I'll do my best to answer it here, or if it needs something a little bit more in depth, I'll go and pop an answer into KnitHub. Anyone who's been on for the last couple of hours, there has been a few glitches with Teachable where the videos are held. They're doing some maintenance, some back-end maintenance. So if you are running into problems, my suggestion is maybe clearing your cache, trying a different browser, or even just going away for an hour or two and coming back. It seems to be quite temporary, but there is something strange going on. So it's not you, you're not doing anything wrong. There's just something funny going on maintenance-wise. But it is always very, very exciting when we've got the first clue coming out. I am a little bit tired today, as anyone who's been kind of following along. Last week was very, very hectic. We had Knit Stars here for a couple of days, it was so much fun, but really tiring because it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. I was finishing up each day. And then we rolled into this getting started, finishing off the blanket club, all of that part. And then also we've even got the Celtic Knits Club coming out next week. So there's an awful lot going on all at the same time, which seems to be the way stuff happens. So, but all is going smoothly. And if I don't get to answer your questions immediately, I will come in as soon as possible. Nadia's popping in and out where possible. And Hannah and Laura are helping a little with some technical queries as we go through as well. Laura will be gone the day after tomorrow as well. So I'll be taking over customer service for the next couple of weeks while she's on holidays. Hey, Caramel. Camilla, you've just got your blanket package. Excellent. We've got Kentucky, South Carolina, Germany, Canada. Excellent. You've got places. I love how many places everyone comes from. So one of the things that we had a few questions come up about was the placement of the buttons and whether these lined up. You may have noticed then when we had it together, first of all, the buttons were not sewn in directly across. So it has been corrected. There was nothing, it was not the way it was put together. It was just literally the buttons were sewn in incorrectly so that the lines were not joined up. So just bear in mind here, let me straighten this up again here, that when you're sewing them on, just keep an eye on where those lines are, the horizontal lines, so that they match up. That's what happened with that one. It was, yeah, very tail end, rushing too much to put buttons on error. I'm looking through. Nope, no more questions, just everyone popping in and saying hello. So this first clue is the first section. I'm going to use this one over here to show you how we put it together. So I'm going to start by giving you an overview of how all the different parts go together. And then from there, talk about some of the changes that people are kind of making and some of the ones where you can possibly leave it and keep it a little bit simpler so that you don't complicate it too much for yourself. So you begin in the middle of the back of the neck here. I might move her a little bit further back. You begin here, right here, and it's a provisional cast on, and then you're doing a few rows of welt, which is just reverse stockinette stitch, and knitting over here. So the bottom section down here is stockinette stitch, and the top section up here has got 1 stitch pattern, and you work that as far as the side of, I might actually take it off here so I can show it directly. There we go. Yes, that's a little easier. Here we go. All right, so I can hold it up directly now. I think this would be a bit more straightforward. So that is the section where you've got your provisional cast on down here, doing it backwards. And then you can see how this is the right side, and you've got the stockinette stitch down here, and you've got the stitch panel down here. So this is what you're going to be looking at as you're working, just as far as here. Then when you reach the side of the neck, you cast on these stitches up across here. So you'll have all the way from here across to here. So for this one, anyone who was making it, you don't need to make any changes as you're working at the cast on stitches, all of that. That's going to be the same as you work across. The only place where you may end up possibly making a change is if you wanted to change the width of your shoulders. But for the most part, you can see this is going to be where it comes up here, but this actually slides off the front, you know, because it continues on down here. So unless your shoulders are considerably wider relative to your bust, or they're considerably narrower, I would just knit to your bust size and leave that be. If you do have a big variation, then you can actually make a little bit of changes here, but it's not essential. And that would just be, you'd change how wide you go to the edge here and how wide you go to the edge here. But it is really not essential. It's just a possible addition you may want to add in. So once you've actually done that and you've worked as far as here, you're going to undo your provisional cast on and go back and do the very same all across the other side. So what you can also see along here is, as you're working, it's hard to do this in reverse. You've got decreases. Where are we? Decreases are worked down on this side, which create this little triangle. See that triangle here? That's all decreases. And the same over on the other side here. There's your little decreases. It starts up in the top here where you've got all the stitches, and then they work the decreases all the way down to create that lovely little triangle across the front. So that's all you're going to have then at the end, is you just have those stitches held, and you have those stitches held here. Again, you do not have to make any changes. Even if you've got a difference in gauge for that, that won't have any impact. You can just knit to the length given for your shoulders. And if it's a small difference, don't make any change. If you do have wider shoulders, you may opt to go, I'm going to move up to the next size up for the shoulders, which will mean that you'll have slightly wider shoulders here. What that obviously is going to mean is then when you come back to the next stage, see where we pick up stitches all the way across the back here. These sleeves don't exist for this. We pick up stitches across the back, and we have got this garter upper body. See, you got the stripes going down here. So that's worked all the way down as far as here. And then see in here, there's increases worked across here. There's no cast on yet. We're just going as far as here. So when you're doing this point down here, you're working straight first of all, and then you start working underarm increases. So if you want to add less increases, say you made your shoulders wider and you want to keep the bust size the same for another size, it just means that you're going to work slightly less increases here. But because you want the same length, those increases that you didn't work, you'll just work straight, and then you'll work the increases later because you want the length from here down to here to remain the same. Same thing on the front. We're picking up stitches down along here. You see down along here, you've picked up stitches. You work, there's one panel that you work here, and there's just a couple of stitches out on the edge here. And then your neck increases are actually increasing down here because you see there's nothing happening on this side of the panel. It's actually happening out of it. So it will look a little bit strange at the start because it'll feel like it's on the wrong place. But once you've got that little triangle of stockinette stitch, it makes more sense. And then you do the same thing with your armhole increases down here. So just remember that you just want to have, when you try it on, like if you ever get stuck, you're getting a bit confused, my suggestion is to kind of put it over your shoulders, try it on, steam it out so that it's actually going to open up and give you a more accurate picture of what it looks like. It will look very small when you're actually starting it, because Laura was saying that to me as I was trying it on and I was doing the first few ones. It looks tiny because you've got just this little section of shoulder saddle that you're putting on here. And until you actually block it a bit, it tends to squish up quite a bit. So it will look very small initially. So if you want to check your length and you're a bit worried about it being too small, just give it a little bit of a steam block to open it up so that you can really start to see what's happening and whether you've got the right length. And then after then, that's all you need to do. You've got like the three things you're doing is you're doing your saddle, working in both directions, setting those stitches aside because you're going to come back afterwards and you will pick up stitches around for the sleeve. But right now they're just sitting. You can do it waste yarn, barber cord, probably not a spare needle because you don't want a spare needle hanging. But like I did it for barber cord, but I would traditionally have used waste yarn for that. Same thing with the back. When you work the back down, you just, when you're finished with it, put it on barber cord or a spare needle. I will often do a spare needle if I have one hanging around, or if you've got one where you can take the needle tips off, it means that you can just leave it on a cord as well. So that works very, very well. But remember, like, knitting is super stretchy. So you've got, like, once you don't like dramatically oversize or undersize, you can actually get away with quite a bit in terms of shaping with garments. So it's like, yeah, if you hold the piece of knitting or even hold a swatch and see how much stretch you've got a good bit of flexibility going on there. I'm looking over here. We've got Michelle from Sligo. Hey, Michelle. And Irina from Chicago. You're excited for the cardigan. If your block card is different from the unblocked, how do we try to size it if you knit? It'll be more largest and more spacious after blocking. So Irina, I think that what I find most useful for that is I have a steamer, or if you've got a steam iron, just gently steam it while it's still on the needles. Like sometimes I'll even pin it out, steam it, and that gives you a fairly good, accurate measurement as you're going. So that can be very, very helpful so that you know that you're going on the right track. So that's what I will often do for something where, like particularly for this, I found for this particular one, this stockinette stitch gauge grew quite a bit with blocking, and in this one, the length grew quite a bit with blocking because it's almost like it's ribbed when it's done initially, or garter stitch, so it's quite vertically compressed. A little bit of steam blocking lets it relax and get you a much more accurate measurement. Monica, you did the test. It does look small, but trust the process. It works out. Exactly, Monica. It does look very small when you're starting these first sections because you're working on tiny little sections at a time. And and so that it means that it doesn't really look like much to start with. Mary, it'll be your most challenging knit you've tried. I would suggest try to get as close as possible to gauge so that you have to make as little modifications as possible to begin with, because that way you can kind of focus on following through the pattern and maybe making a few little tweaks as you go through. But like basically if you can try and follow through the pattern, you should be just fine, because everything is detailed through in the videos. So each section, you can see that there's a section of the video showing you what to do. And we're always here to actually answer questions as you go through if you're having difficulty with a particular section. But just following through the pattern first time through with as little change, like obviously sometimes you're going to have a few more changes if necessary, but try to keep it relatively minimal so that you're not complicating it too much for yourself. Danica, hey from Ohio, you replayed the videos since you jumped on late. You're excited to begin. We are all very excited. Joanne, there's 3 of you from Jacksonville, Florida, and 1 from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Oh, welcome. Mary, the videos are helpful and you check gauge. Excellent. But yeah, like I would say, just checking gauge with the length as you're going through, and you should be fine. I try to, anywhere we're doing length, I will usually give both the rows worked if it's relevant to the pattern, and then I'll give a length. So it means that if your row gauge is a little bit different, you can adjust as you're going through. Same thing with, the changes I was saying, where if you adjust your shoulder width, and it means that you're going to, but you want to keep the same bust width. That's why I've given the row lengths. So for instance, if you go ahead and you don't make any other changes, say you made your shoulders narrower, and you kept the bust size the same, then you just know you're going to need a certain number of extra row increases. So you'll start a few rows sooner. So when it says to work to a certain length, you need to figure out, okay, I'll be that length less this many rows. And then when you start your increases, when you get to the bottom of the increases, you should have the correct length that you want. If you don't want to make the changes with the increases, if you have changed the width of the shoulders and you don't want to make any changes to the increases, that's actually fine, because at the next stage, we're going to be casting on stitches across the underarm. So you can actually make all of your changes there as well. So if you need, if you made it a little narrower and it meant that you would 4 stitches less up here and 4 stitches less down there, you can add those 4 stitches at the underarm as well. So there's usually a couple of different places that you can make all of those changes. So anything that basically keeps it as simple as possible, doesn't complicate it, and yeah, like basically just try to keep it simple so that you don't get yourself too confused through the process. Just follow along through the pattern, checking your lengths, making little changes as you go through, as you're doing it. But yeah, like pop up any other questions you've got there. It may be because it's just come out today, you may not really have jumped in and kind of figured out what the questions are yet. The first thing we're doing was that provisional cast on. So I've shown you how to do the invisible provisional cast on. Reason I've shown that is when you actually get the rhythm on doing that, it's very, very straightforward to do and it's very fast. But it can take a while. If you haven't done it before, it feels really strange because it's like learning to knit again. So I would, if it's new to you, I would encourage you to give it a shot, try it, go through it a little bit. But if you're not getting it and you just want to get started, look up the crochet provisional cast on, because it's a perfect provisional cast on. It'll work really well here because all of the stitches are the same. So you can just get straight started with that. So like very often, if there's a particular technique, what's important is that it's provisional. The provisional type isn't as important. I'm just putting in my current preferred method is probably the best way to say it. There's a question coming up here. Irina, you've got one more sizing question. Your bust size is between the pattern sizes. You're doing the bio-bounds short sleeved and you'd like no ease fit at the bust. How should I choose the size? In that case, size down. So basically, if you take a look, we've got 2 sets of sizing. We've got the to fit bust sizes, and what that has is got ease built in. So my suggested ease is 2 to 4 inches of ease. So you'll see that for like, I don't have the sizes in front of me, but if you had a 36-inch bust, then for that, if you say it would fit up to 36 inches, that would mean that it would fit between 34 and 36. So the size for that, it's going to be about a 38-inch, which means that there will be 2 inches bigger than the bust size. So if you want no ease, what you want to look at is come down, take a look at the actual finished sizes, because that will tell you the size of the bust, and go pick that one there. If you're a little between the sizes and the bust sizes, then I would suggest going up a little. You could always take, even if there's going to be very little difference, you might opt to perhaps take 1 or 2 stitches out from the underarm, or even make a narrower band in the front here is going to make a difference. I wouldn't go too low on ease with cardigans though, because you see with the cardigan here where it can pull back here, the less ease you have, the more this is going to stretch. So don't go too far under with ease, because particularly if you're going to wear clothes, you'll end up with problems with that stretching out. So I wouldn't go with absolutely no ease. I would have just a little bit so that it's got a small bit more so that you're able to button it to be worn. Hey, Deb from Massachusetts, nice to see you. Jamie, you were excited to get started this morning. I know there was a lot of you really excited. I'm delighted that you're all so eager and really, really looking forward to getting started with the cardigan. Deb, you love the crochet provisional cast on. Perfect. Just fly ahead with that. The important part is that it's provisional, not the type of provisional. Just the invisible one is just, I like it. It's fast and I can stick it straight onto the cord. So I did a barber cord or a silicone cord, because when you use that, you can actually use that as waste yarn. And so then you can slip the stitches straight onto it. So it does have that advantage, but the crochet method where you just pop them off and put the stitches on, it's absolutely perfect as well. Maureen, you were saying you've been knitting for 80 years, but there's certainly some new techniques to learn here. Yes, there's lots of stuff thrown in, which is why I've got so many videos, because I do think it makes a big, big difference. You can just focus on one technique at a time. Steam block as you're going. If you're worried about length, if you know your gauge is correct, then you can just kind of keep powering ahead as you're going through. And just once you can see where every part fits together, it will make sense. And remember that any changes you make on one side, you make on the other. So if you make one side of the saddle wider, make sure you make the other side wider. So if you want a full inch wider, you'll have ½ an inch on this side and ½ an inch on this side, so that it's going to balance out. That's going to change how many stitches you pick up. It may be that you can just jump up to the next size. If you know it's wider, you can just check how many stitches that would be, or you can just use the ratio of picking it up. Now, what you can also see, if you change the number of stitches that you pick up, you'll have a certain number of those repeats that you'll have. Anything extra, you can just pop. If you've got more stitches, you can put just a few on as stockinette stitch on each end. You may have enough that you can actually do a whole extra repeat. So either way is going to work fine. Just leave those extra stockinette stitches out on the end, and it'll blend in with what we're doing on the side here as well. Manny, you're enjoying listening to me, but as a newbie, it's gone right over your head so far. You feel confident you'll be fine once you start, as there's lots of support. Yeah, that's what I'm trying, like, that's the big thing, Manny, I'm saying, is that some of these are people who've done, like, a lot of the questions are coming from people who've done a lot of knit alongs before, done a lot of garments before, and they're really trying to fine tune and tweak now. If you're starting, step it back, get your gauge correct, measure your bust, pick your size, and just go with the pattern as written, so that you can learn the whole process as you're going through, and don't make too many adjustments on the first time round. So that'd be the best advice I can give you, because otherwise you're going to tie yourself in knots. And just keep it as simple as possible, because that way you can also follow the videos through and follow what's going step by step. So yeah, don't worry if there's a lot that is kind of a bit too much. It might give some ideas as you're going through. If you're running into issues or things you want to change, it might give you just a vague idea of the kind of things that are possible. It is completely not necessary. These are all bonuses or extras, or people kind of just tweaking because perhaps there's something that didn't work well for them in the past. I'm going through here. Yeah, Jamie's, Manny, that you like the patterns are written step by step. That's exactly it. They're designed to be knit step by step. And what I'm talking through is just people who just want to tweak a little bit, but it's absolutely not necessary. Just to set your mind at ease. You're not doing something wrong if you're not making adjustments. It's just often if people are making adjustments, that's where a lot of the questions end up coming in. And what we're doing here is kind of trying to make it possible that you can do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the whole process. But welcome, Manny, to the knit along, and I hope you do enjoy your first sweater with me, if this is the first one you're going through. I am an absolute obsessive garment knitter. This is why I learned to knit, was because I love knitting garments. And if somebody said, sit down and go design something, or you can only knit something for the rest of your life, it would be a garment, like cardigans, sweaters, doesn't matter, but just something you can wear, because I love being able to pull out my knits and wear them. But it is, look how stretchy it is. The fact that even if it's a little bit up and down, it's going to be very, very forgiving once you're not dramatically off in one direction or another. And your gauge and your bust size are going to get you pretty close to that. I do usually size for bust size, and I kind of leave the shoulders lie where they are, because generally speaking, for me, my bust and my shoulders, they're kind of in proportion. The only time you change that would be if you know that you always have shoulders that are either way too wide or way too narrow. So as you're going through, I will do a couple of little sketches up for that, and I'll pop it up into KnitHub so people can kind of see what you're doing and what I mean with that when you're putting a few changes in as you go through. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, pop them in here. And you also know where KnitHub is and the Torc knit along inside there and where to put them up. I am going to be traveling tomorrow. So if questions come up over the course of the day tomorrow, I will be a little late coming back to them. And Nadia is also going to be heading off with me. We're going off to an award ceremony with Google tomorrow for You're the Business award ceremony. So you might see a few of those popping up. But it does mean that we'll be a little quiet on KnitHub tomorrow. But first thing on Friday morning, I'll be sure to jump in and actually answer any questions as they come up. So you can probably see why I'm feeling a little on the tired side. There is a lot going on. Manny, thank you all, lovely people. You're very, very welcome. I mean, what's most important is I want everyone to have a really enjoyable garment knitting experience. And if you need to make changes, to have enough tools there to feel equipped to be able to go and make those changes. So I'm going to go say goodbye to you all now and have fun knitting. And I know there's one or two queries that have popped into KnitHub that I'm going to go in and do my best to answer now when I go back. Thank you all.